The destruction of Warsaw was Nazi Germany's razing of the city in late 1944, after the 1944 Warsaw Uprising of the Polish resistance. The uprising infuriated German leaders, who decided to destroy the city in retaliation. The razing of the city had long been planned. Warsaw had been selected for destruction and major reconstruction as part of the Nazis' planned Germanization of Central Europe, under the Nazi General Plan Ost. However, by late 1944, with the war clearly lost, the Germans had abandoned their plans of colonizing the East. Thus, the destruction of Warsaw did not serve any military or colonial purpose, it was carried out solely as an act of reprisal. German forces dedicated an unprecedented effort to razing the city, destroying 80 to 90% of Warsaw's buildings, including the vast majority of museums, art galleries, theaters, churches, parks, and historical buildings such as castles and palaces. They deliberately demolished, burned, or stole an immense part of Warsaw's cultural heritage. After the war, extensive work was put into rebuilding the city according to pre-war plans and historical documents. On June 20, 1939, while Adolf Hitler was visiting an architectural bureau in Würzburg am Main, he noticed a project of a future German town, Neue Deutsche Stadt Warschau. According to the Pabst plan, Warsaw was to be turned into a provincial German city of 130,000. Third Reich planners drafted precise drawings outlining a historic, Germanic, core where a select few landmarks would be saved, such as the royal castle, which would serve as Hitler's state residence. The plan, which was composed of 15 drawings and a miniature architectural model, was named after German army architect Friedrich Pabst, to refine the concept of destroying a nation's morale and culture by destroying its physical and architectural manifestations. The design of the actual new German city over the site of Warsaw was devised by Hubert Gross. The aftermath of the failure of the Warsaw Uprising presented an opportunity for Hitler to begin to realize his pre-war conception. The Warsaw Uprising was launched by the Polish Home Army on August 1, 1944, as part of Operation Tempest. In response, under orders from Heinrich Himmler, Warsaw was kept under ceaseless barrage by Nazi artillery and air power for 63 days and nights by Erich von dem Bock-Zaluski. In 1944, a large transit camp was constructed in Pruszkow's train repair shops to house the evacuees expelled from Warsaw. In the course of the Warsaw Uprising and its suppression, the Germans deported approximately 550,000 of the city's residents and approximately 100,000 civilians from its outskirts, sending them to Gulag 121 in Pruszkow. The security police and the SS segregated the deportees and decided their fate. Approximately 650,000 people passed through the Pruszkow camp in August, September, and October. Approximately 55,000 were sent to concentration camps, including 13,000 to Auschwitz. They included people from a variety of social classes, occupations, physical conditions, and ages. Evacuees ranged from infants only a few weeks old to the extremely elderly. In a few cases, these were also people of different ethnic backgrounds, including Jews living on Aryan papers. After the remaining population had been expelled, the Germans began the destruction of the remnants of the city. Special groups of German combat engineers were dispatched throughout the city in order to burn, Brandkommandos, and demolish, Sprengkommandos, the remaining buildings. According to German plans, after the war Warsaw was to be turned into nothing more than a military transit station. By January 1945, between 85% and 90% of the buildings had been completely destroyed. This includes up to 10% as a result of the September 1939 campaign and following combat, up to 15% during the earlier Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, 25% during the uprising, and 40% due to systematic German demolition of city after the uprising. Material losses were estimated at 10,455 buildings, 923 historical buildings, 94%, 25 churches, 14 libraries including the National Library, 81 primary schools, 64 high schools, the University of Warsaw, the Warsaw University of Technology, and most of the city's historical monuments. Almost 1 million inhabitants lost all of their possessions. The exact losses of private and public property, including pieces of art, other cultural artifacts and scientific artifacts, is unknown but must be considered substantial since Warsaw and her inhabitants were the richest and wealthiest Poles in pre-war Poland. In 2004, the president of Warsaw, Lech Kaczynski, later president of Poland, established a historical commission to estimate losses to public property alone that were inflicted on the city by German authorities. The commission estimated the losses to be at least $31.5 billion. Those estimates were later raised to $45 billion and in 2005, to $54.6 billion, all equated to $2004. The official estimates don't include immense losses of private property, which are of unknown value since almost all of the pre-war documents, such as insurance values of private collections, have also been destroyed, but are considered between double and triple the official estimates, which are based on documented losses only while, for example, the National Library's list of pre-war property lost estimated to be 1% of its collection since Germans destroyed all archives too. During the German suppression of the Warsaw Uprising of 1944, around 70 to 80% of libraries were carefully burned by the Brandkommandos, burning detachments, whose mission was to burn Warsaw. In October 1944, the Zaluski Library, the oldest public library in Poland and one of the oldest and most important libraries in Europe, established in 1747, was burned down. Out of about 400,000 printed items, maps, and manuscripts, only some 1,800 manuscripts and 30,000 printed materials survived. In the last phase of the Warsaw Uprising and after its collapse, in September and October 1944, the three major private libraries in Warsaw, including collections of priceless value to Polish culture, ceased to exist. Those libraries had already suffered in September 1939, when they were bombed and burned. Unlike earlier Nazi book burnings where specific books were deliberately targeted, the burning of those libraries was part of the general burning of a large part of the city of Warsaw. This resulted in the disappearance of many valuable old books and scrolls among about 16 million volumes from National Library, museums and palaces burnt indiscriminately by Germans in Poland during World War II. The Central Military Library, containing 350,000 books on the history of Poland, was destroyed, including the Library of Polish Museum in Rapperswil deposited there for safekeeping. The collection of the Rapperswil Library was transported to Poland in 1927. The library and the museum were founded in Rapperswil, Switzerland, in 1870 as a refuge for Poland's historic memorabilia dishonored and plundered in the occupied Polish homeland, and for the promotion of Polish interests. The greater part of library's collections, originally 20,000 engravings, 92,000 books and 27,000 manuscripts, were deliberately destroyed by the Germans in 1944.